and welcome to this week's Wildlife Wednesday Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Tenley Thompson, and we've got some great videos to show you all this week. The way this is going to work is I'm going to show you the latest and greatest videos from the greater Yellowstone ecosystem that our guides have been taking throughout the week. Then you'll have a chance to win a gift card to our Eco Tour store. And lastly, I'll be answering your questions live as a wildlife biologist. So if you've got a wildlife biology, nature, animal-related question for me, go ahead and comment them in the comment section. We'd also love to know where everybody's joining us from. But let's go ahead and get started. First things first, let's check in on our most famous grizzly bear in Grand Teton National Park, Grizzly 399 and her daughter, 610.
It was a busy week for grizzly bears in Grand Teton National Park this week. And most of that was because of the plentiful berry harvest. So let's start with grizzly bear 610 and her two almost subadult cubs. They're just still with mom, but after hibernation this winter will probably be on their own next spring, absolutely mowing down service berries in the open meadows in northern Grand Teton this week. Now, grizzly bear 610 is a very successful mother, and although we don't know the gender of these cubs, it is very clear that they're doing very well. They're fat and they're fit as they enter into hyperphagia. Hyperphagia, if you're not aware of the scientific term, is a period of time in the fall when all bears go into an intense period of eating and gaining calories. Some bears are up 24 hours a day, just stuffing their faces with as high of caloric content of food as they can find in preparation for that winter hibernation. Grizzly Bear 399, arguably the most famous grizzly bear in the world, and Grizzly Bear 610's mother was out and about with her quadruplets this week as well, going after those same service berries. Service berries are remarkably nutritious berries in terms of the overall caloric content per berry. Now, the annual ritual of fall by moving from one berry crop to another is an very important food resource that these four cubs are learning from their mother. They are duplicating her activities, following her by example. They are still definitely nursing, but the additional caloric content that they're gaining by feeding on these berries and learning how to feed on these berries, because it's not easy, these bushes grow quite tall, is an incredibly important part of their development. When they're grown and adult bears, they're going to need to be able to find and smell out berry sources on their own, but also are going to be able to replicate where these berries are found by going back to the same location year after year. And we know this because grizzly bear 610 is taking her cubs back to the same location that her mother 399 originally took her when she was still a cub. Now, because service berries do well in low-lying riparian habitat, as well as open areas with lots of sunlight, they naturally tend to grow relatively well against roads. And there was certainly some traffic and some excitement over these grizzly bears over the last several days. I would like to remind everybody that it's so critically important that you follow all instructions from our Wildlife and Bear Brigade, and the Travel and Tourism Board has teamed up with us to try to help everybody remember that 100 yards is the minimum accepted distance to spend any distance away from any grizzly bear. While these cubs are being raised along the roadside for reasons we've discussed in previous episodes of our weekly roundup, it is important that they continue to maintain their status as wild bears. We're very grateful for the Grand Teton National Park Volunteer Wildlife Bear Brigade for keeping everyone safe while still being able to enjoy some great views of these particular bears. It's looking more and more like all four cubs are in great condition to go into hibernation and are really packing on the pounds. I was slightly concerned about the smallest cub of the litter, what people have been calling the runt, but it seems to have really done a great job catching up with its siblings in terms of body weight and size. In the same way I was concerned about the runt, I was also a little bit concerned about 399, the mother. She had actually gotten to be relatively thin for a female bear this summer. She's finally putting weight on at last, and every one of these calories is sure going to count in preparation for her hibernation. So a big thank you to our naturalist and videographer, photographer extraordinaire, Josh, as well as our weekly contributor, naturalist Mike, for their great footage of both Grizzly Bear 610 and 399 and all of these cubs. All 8 bears are looking good and well.
Those bears are so cute, those little cubs. I was lucky enough to be out with some guests last night, and I did run into Grizzly Bear 399 and her cubs enjoying our fresh snowfall. It's been an absolutely crazy week. We started out with quite a lot of smoke in the valley, mostly from wildfires in California, but also some wildfires in Yellowstone National Park, in the southern, sort of southwestern corner of the park. And then from there, we got a bunch of rain, and then it got really nice and sunny. On Monday afternoon, it was about 75 degrees at 4 p.m., and then all of a sudden, boom, we got snowfall, and it froze overnight. So some of these videos you see this week are going to be like beautiful, sunny, 80-degree day, and some of the videos you see this week are going to be in the snow, and some of the videos you see this week are going to be in the smoke. And yes, they are all from the same week. It's been kind of crazy, but that's what fall weather in the mountains is all about. So let's tune in with Sarah, who just got an opportunity to come back from one of our multi-day expeditions up into the northern range of Yellowstone and check out some of the wolf footage that she caught.
Hello, this is Guide Sarah Ernst, and we just got back from several multi-day trips we made through Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. One of the highlights for me of a multi-day trip is the chance to get up to the northern range of Yellowstone, which is known as some of the best wolf watching really in the planet. And we definitely weren't disappointed on these recent trips, viewing the Junction Butte Pack at their rendezvous site. The Junction Butte Pack is a little bit unusual for wild wolves in that multiple females in this pack bred, not only this year but in previous years. And that currently makes them the largest pack not only in Yellowstone but the whole region, at over 30 wolves including the pups. We're not really sure why so many females have been breeding. One possible hypothesis is that this pack has had some issues with female leadership in the pack. Multiple females have squabbled over who gets to be the alpha female. Another hypothesis is that they don't have a lot of direct competition from other packs. They dominate the northern range of Yellowstone. Their territory currently extends from the hell-roaring region of the park all the way out to Soda Butte Creek, territories which in the last 20 years have often been claimed by multiple wolf packs, but recently this one large pack has been dominating that whole area. Another hypothesis is that as the elk in Yellowstone have returned down to their historic levels from their overpopulated state, the wolves have turned more to hunting bison. And with elk, the optimal number for bringing down an elk is 4. But with bison, really the more the better. Bison are a much tougher, larger, more aggressive prey, and you need lots of bodies to bring down a bison. It's sort of like taking on Kevin Hart versus The Rock. You need a lot more support when you're taking on The Rock. So whichever reason why, it's been really a delight for us over the last few years to view so many puppies out there. We were able to see lots of good play behavior, greeting behavior, and even some tunneling through the dirt. One thing you'll notice about this pack is they do come in lots of different colors. Black wolves are only found in North America. The species we have here, the gray wolf, Canis lupus, is found all across the northern part of our globe. But you only find black wolves here, and that's due to thousands of years ago, native Inuit dogs breeding with the wolves, introducing the black gene into the population. We think the black gene originally came from a mutation in the dog population and then was brought into the wolves by interbreeding. And the black wolves we have now have been mating with other wolves long enough that they're considered to be 100% wolf, but they do have that black gene from some ancient dog DNA in their heritage. There has been some studies in the Yellowstone region that suggest that the black gene, which is a simple dominant recessive gene, the black gene is dominant over the gray gene. That means that 2 gray wolves can only have gray pups, but a black and a gray wolf can have both black and gray pups, and 2 black wolves that are both hiding the gray gene can both have both black pups and gray pups. There is some evidence that the K locus gene, the name of the gene for the black coat color in dogs and wolves, also gives wolves an advantage when it comes to disease resistance, especially in distemper. So there may be some positive pressure selecting for the black coat color in wolves, especially here in the Yellowstone region. We tend to see more black wolves here than we do in other parts of North America. And why that is, we're not entirely sure yet, but disease resistance is a contributing factor. You'll notice that some of the black wolves are starting to go gray, just like us humans. As they get into their golden years, they start to get more gray fur in their coats. Gray wolves can also change color. Most famously, the alpha female of the Hayden pack and her daughter, the alpha female of the Canyon pack, and in these days, the alpha female of the Wapiti Lake pack, the granddaughter of the Hayden alpha female. All 3 of those were born light gray and turned white as they aged. So all of the pale gray or white wolves we have here in Yellowstone are gray in color and have turned white over the years. With such a large pack, we can notice some individuals with certain color patterns or certain behavior traits. And it's like following a massive soap opera over the years. So even once you see them one year, when you come back, it's fascinating to follow their story.
So some pretty awesome wolf footage. Fall is such a fantastic time to see wolves in Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. And we've had a particularly great year seeing wolves this time. Wolves, grizzlies, all of this stuff really is active in the fall. It's a great time of year to visit us. It is back to wonderfully warm temperatures. So we just have a nice dusting of snow up in the high peaks. But down on the valley floor, it's nice and sunny and lovely again. But it does mean that our climbing season is probably basically over in the Tetons. Our guide, owner, and naturalist, Taylor, got one last climb in for the season, and he was nice enough to take us along for the ride. Now, I will warn you, it's a little windy up in the high peaks, particularly when you're summiting mountains, and so there is a little bit of wind in this. We tried to take as much of it out as we could, but I put a little bit of an introduction in here so that you guys could better understand a little bit of what Taylor was talking about on top of the mountains. Here you go.
EcoTour Adventures naturalist, owner, and guide Taylor took a really interesting climb this week in the Teton Range in Grand Teton National Park. He hiked and climbed up to the second highest peak in the Grand Teton Range, the Enclosure. Now, the Enclosure is located just behind the Grand Teton as you look on it straight on from the Wyoming side of the Teton Range. Taylor hiked up through Garnet Canyon, up to the lower saddle, over the middle Teton Glacier, on up to the summit. Besides being the second highest peak in the Tetons, the Enclosure is famous for a number of reasons. The first being its curious man-made structure that's within a few feet of its summit. It was discovered during the course of a controversial attempt to climb the Grand Teton in 1872 by the Langford Party. Nathaniel P. Langford claims to be the first person to have climbed the Grand Teton, but later on, when the Owen Spalding Party summited in 1898, they found some problems with Langford's description of the summit. Today, it's believed that Langford may have in fact climbed and summited the Enclosure and not maybe made it all the way to the top of the Grand Teton, and the Owen Spalding Party was actually the first party to summit the Grand Teton in 1898. Langford, his entire life, disputed this notion. But regardless of who was the first to summit the Grand Teton, there's no question that Langford was the first person of European American descent to go ahead and summit the Enclosure, the second highest peak that our guide Taylor made it up to this week. But he was certainly not the first human on top of its summit. Early native peoples made a stone circle just near the top that Taylor's going to show you in this video. Its origins are unknown, but are thought to have been used in ritual purpose for early native peoples in the valley. So let's follow along with Taylor as he makes his big summit this week. We hope you will understand a little bit of the wind noises in some of this video. We've done our best to sort of dim them down, but it was awfully windy on top of those Teton peaks this week.
Hello everyone here. I'm in the upper reaches of the North Fork of Garnet Canyon. Right behind me is what's known as the lower saddle, and just wanted to spend a couple of minutes here and just talk about Teton's geology and glaciation. So right behind me, you guys can see is the Middle Teton Glacier. It's one of about 12 remaining ice fields or glaciers in the Tetons. This ice it's approximately a few hundred years old from the last mini ice age that finished up kind of the end of the 1800s. But it's a pretty spectacular day here. Windy, it's a little chilly. We'll look down the valley for you guys. Yeah, that's the canyon that we came up, and yeah, no, it feels great to be in the Tetons. Hey everyone, I'm back. Maybe about an hour later, 45 minutes later, we're down here at the lower saddle, one of the younger mountain ranges in North America, hence the sharp, jagged peaks. These mountains are still uplifting as well. Some people believe with about a foot every 500 years. But yeah, that's the Grand right behind me. We're heading up towards the Grand. We're going to take a little offshoot to what's called the Enclosure. Now here we're looking into the Jackson Hole Valley. There's the Lone Star fire up in Yellowstone is producing a lot of smoke. Lightning caused fire. Maybe it's been burning for about 2 weeks now, but it's really hard to even see the valley floor back there. Hey everyone, Taylor here on the top of the Enclosure. Still quite smoky today, but yeah, this is a pretty incredible peak. This thumb off the Grand Teton is the second tallest peak in the Teton range. You can see the Grand Teton behind me, and wow, it's a busy day for climbers on the Grand. There's probably over 80 people kind of across that slope that's behind me. What's one thing that's really cool, really special about the Enclosure is this rock structure right behind me. You kind of see how these rocks are kind of fanned out. So it's thought that early Native American tribes that kind of used the Jackson Hole Valley, that they would come up to the Enclosure over 13,000 feet in elevation, 7,000 feet off of the valley floor for vision quests. So kind of this structure was first found by the Langford party. It's uncertain if they made the summit of the Grand. That was their objective. Some people claim they did, other people not. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is the Enclosure. And I'm looking at Mount Owen in the back. And now as we kind of scroll over, looking at Idaho. And again, smoky. A lot of this smoke is likely coming out of Yellowstone in the Lone Star Fire. Well, I hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for joining us.
So a big thanks to Taylor for taking us up into the high country and showing us such a unique archaeological site in the United States, much less in the Tetons. Make sure that you give Taylor a big congratulations for his big climb last weekend, because he is doing our comments section this Wednesday. So he will see Go ahead and tell them in the comments that you're pretty impressed, because I'm pretty impressed. I don't know about the rest of you. And it's pretty awesome that he was nice enough to take some time while he was up there to tell us a little bit about the history and the geology of the area. Okay, so we've been up in the high country. Let's get back down to the low country and take a little bit of a journey along the river with some of our guides.
Good morning, everyone. This is Seth. Just checking in with you guys here along the Grovant River, and we just stumbled upon not one, not two, but 6 bull moose. Check out these two right in front of me. We have the Tetons in the back. So moose are categorized as browsers. Moose is a Native American name that actually translates to twig eater. So they're going to be munching on those willow bushes and cottonwoods and aspens. And because moose is a Native American word, it doesn't follow English language. So it's one moose and multiple moose. There's no meese or mooses out here. Not even a moosin'.
It's been a busy week in Grand Teton National Park in the riparian corridors. Riparian is just a scientific word that means lakeside, streamside, marshy water river bottoms, which of course is a favorite place for moose to live and browse. I thought it might be fun to explore some of the great animals of the riparian ecosystems, both large like moose and quite small. So let's go ahead and get started. River otters are one of my favorite animals of the riparian ecosystem. They're really, really fun to watch. They're playful, they're smart, they're intelligent, and they're really fast. A river otter is about 2 to 3 feet long, and it's actually a type of weasel, which takes a lot of people by surprise. The males are quite a bit larger than the females, and so it's often quite easy to tell them apart. But most family groups, such as this one, are often without a male. Males won't join a group of river otters until the young are at least 6 months old. Now, a favorite game that river otter love to play is where one will grab a large pebble, swim out into the river, and drop it, and then the rest will race and dive to go after that same pebble. If you're ever lucky enough to be on a river bottom and watch them as they're squeaking and diving and playing, it is a joy to behold. River otters are just as fast swimming underneath the water as they are on the surface of the water, which is very unusual. Most animals are quite a bit faster one way or another. They mostly eat fish, frogs, and sometimes crayfish, basically all that swims in our local rivers. Most river otters will den on stream banks, and they'll have one entrance of their den above the water and one below to protect them from any predators who might come after them. The easiest way to do this is just to steal an old beaver or muskrat den and repurpose it for themselves. Now, most river otters are very, very intelligent, and they adapt to their environment and learn from it over time. There have been cases of river otters living as long as 15 years and passing on that wisdom and knowledge to their offspring. Speaking of beaver, river otters, who are swimming away from us in the distance here, are all well and good, but there's nothing quite so much fun as watching a beaver in action. And beaver habitat and river otter habitat is in the same location, so it's not uncommon to get an opportunity to actually see both, like in this particular circumstance that Laura caught this week with a beaver swimming right by. Beaver are the keystone animal of any riparian western ecosystem. Their survival allows dozens of other species to live and thrive, and their ability to build lodges and dams change the structure of riverbanks and allow everything from river otters to elk and moose to survive and thrive. Grizzly bears even rely on beavers, who, when they change and flood different ecosystems, allow the fresh vegetation to grow, like service berries that they rely on from week to week. Let's check in with our naturalist, Seth, who got a great look at a beaver this week from the water.
Hey everyone, this is Justin. Yep, you got it. The one, the only Justin Beaver. And I've watched him over the past minute or so slowly strip kind of the outermost layer off this aspen branch. They don't eat the whole branch or all the piece of a stick or log. They are gnawing off the Cambrian layer, the layer right below the bark. That's where all the nutrients pass through the branches and the trunks of trees. So that's what they're after, is all the nutrients there. And he'll keep stripping it. He'll probably be done with it in 30 seconds or a minute. He'll discard of it and he'll go find something else to chew on. Alright guys, can you spot the immature bald eagle? So some people might think, what are you talking about, Seth? That's not a bald eagle, it's not bald. Well, immature bald eagles don't get their mature coloring until about 5 years of age. So before that, they're going to look more brownish. And people will mistake them for golden eagles. Especially, sometimes you'll get an immature bald eagle sitting on a branch right next to the bald eagle, grown bald eagle, and people think there's a golden eagle sitting on the same branch as a bald eagle, because sometimes the young ones can look bigger than their parents because they have more down feathers to help them learn how to fly when they're young, and then they slowly lose those, get their mature coloring and their normal body size. But typically if you see an eagle along a waterway, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a bald eagle. And if you see one that's brown, it's still probably a bald eagle, but it's less than 5 years old.
So a big thanks to Seth for taking us along the river there, and as well as Jackson Lake on his day off to see river otters, mergansers, cormorants, eagles, and a big thanks to Laura for her fantastic beaver and river otter footage. I hope you all enjoyed our little trip down through riparian habitat.
So, a nice visit along the river. Now, I've seen a few of you guys in the comment section are planning to visit us in the next week, which, man, you've picked a good week. The elk are starting to bugle. The moose are starting to move into their breeding season and their rut. We typically get lovely, lovely temperatures for a couple weeks before it starts to cool off and we start to see that great fall color. If you are planning on visiting us anytime in, the next year, do contact us in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we're going to offer you 10% off any future trip that you book. So if you're thinking about going out with us on a trip, that's a great opportunity. We'd love to see who's watching these videos and whether they're having an impact. So do let us know. If you watch these videos and you end up booking a trip with us, we'd love to see some success from that for sure. We certainly offer these as a public service. We want everybody to enjoy the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. But it doesn't hurt us when you book a trip as well, right? I like taking guests out. I think we all do. So come visit us. We do take requests for guides. So if you see a guide that you're really enjoying as part of this series, do ask for them. We all have different levels of expertise, well, different specialties. We all have about the same level of expertise, but some folks are formerly wolf biologists, some people are grizzly biologists, some people are geologists, and so on and so forth. So feel free to check that out. Also, of course, like and share this video. That makes a huge, huge difference for us. Okay, enough of that. I do think it'd be fun to go back up into the high country one more time with another one of our guides, Kelsey, who when she's not taking guests out, loves to be climbing in the high peaks. As sort of a farewell to our climbing season, she actually had some animal friends on her last climbing adventure. Let's check it out.
Hey guys, it's Kelsey. I want to talk to you a little bit about some mountain goat videos that I filmed, one in Yellowstone National Park and the other in Grand Teton National Park, actually on a climbing excursion with one of my friends. We discovered the mountain goat after noticing rocks getting kicked down on us. Eventually the mountain goat did reveal itself to be the culprit, so we steered clear of it, gave it plenty of space, and also kept ourselves safe from any additional rock fall. Well, that experience is a little bit interesting because up until recently that wasn't something that would happen to you up in the Tetons, because mountain goats are not native to this region. They were introduced into Idaho in the 1980s as a game hunting species, and since then they've expanded their range and wandered into Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. Now this poses a very unique problem in Grand Teton National Park because we have a very sensitive, very unique bighorn sheep herd that lives year-round up at the higher elevations. Typically, bighorn sheep will spend their summers up high and their winters down at lower elevations. And the Teton Valley has two bighorn sheep herds. One we call the Teton herd, that's up high in Grand Teton National Park, and the other is the Jackson herd, which spends its summers up on Sheep Mountain and then its winters down in the National Elk Refuge just outside of town. Now, because the Teton herd does not wander down to the lower elevations in the winter, there is no genetic mixing that occurs with the Jackson herd. And so their genetics are very unique, and there's only about 100 individuals up there. And so it's important for us to preserve this population, because if we do lose them, then we lose all the genetic diversity that belongs with that herd. Now, the mountain goat population that exists now up in the Tetons threatens the bighorn sheep population, because the mountain goats carry diseases that the bighorn sheep are susceptible to, and they also outcompete the bighorn sheep for the same food resources. So Grand Teton National Park is diligently working on a plan to remove the mountain goat population and protect our native bighorn sheep population, and we're hoping to see some significant changes within the next few years.
So pretty neat to see some of those high alpine visitors, but definitely some important animal and wildlife issues going on in the high country in Grand Teton National Park. Grand Teton's not the only national park that is facing an invasion of mountain goats. We're definitely seeing that in some of the national parks in Washington State, for instance. Olympic National Park is undergoing the same kinds of concerns. There's lots of places in the United States that mountain goats are native, like Yellowstone National Park, and that's a great place to see them. But definitely we want to try and protect our bighorn sheep herd down here in Grand Teton as well. All right, pretty fun stuff. What do you guys think? Pretty great week, pretty crazy week in regards to weather, with beautiful sunny days, smoky days, and snowy days. So I hope you had a little bit of fun watching all of that. We do have just a couple more days to sign up for our fall photo workshop, which is coming up with Nate Luby, who is an amazing professional photographer, and our in-house photographer, professional photographer, Josh. Let's check that out one more time, because I think it would be really great if some of you guys are planning on coming into the valley to definitely hop on this once-in-a-lifetime trip.
Hello, this is Josh Metten, EcoTour Adventures naturalist and co-leader of our 2020 Fall Photography Workshop with Sony Alpha Collective photographer Nate Luby, better known as Nate in the Wild. This year's workshop is October 2nd through 10th, and we wanted to share this highlight reel with you from last year's trip. Nate and I are thrilled to be exploring fall in Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks with you again. It's one of our favorite times of year to photograph the diverse wildlife and stunning landscapes of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Our adventure starts in Jackson Hole at the doorstep of Grand Teton National Park, where we'll spend several days looking for bugling elk, moose, grizzlies, and black bears beneath the mighty Teton Range. We'll have opportunities to photograph golden aspen tree groves in this stunning landscape while learning tips and tricks to take your images to the next level. During classroom sessions, learn how to use Lightroom and get the most out of your images, including tips for time-lapse and astrophotography, two of Nate Luby's specialties. In Yellowstone National Park, we'll explore the park's diverse thermal features, including the Old Faithful area and famous Grand Prismatic Spring. Our national mammal, bison, are a frequent sight in Yellowstone, creating numerous opportunities for photographs. In the Lamar Valley, we'll look for wolves, who were successfully reintroduced to the park 25 years ago in 1995. Learn about these apex predators at a private dinner presentation with a Yellowstone wolf biologist. Join us on this trip of a lifetime, October 2nd through 10th, 2020. We can't wait to share the best of Grand Teton and Yellowstone with you.
All right, so if you're interested in that, just a little bit of time left to go ahead and jump on that trip of a lifetime. Definitely contact us for more details. I'm sure Taylor will put a link up as well for more information. All right, was that fun? Did you guys like this week's video? It's pretty great, huh? So you know what that means. It's time for our trivia question of the week. So we'll start by doing last week's trivia question. Go ahead and give everybody the answer, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you this week's trivia question, which I think is a real conundrum. So everybody's been saying I should ask harder questions. I may have gone over the top this week. You'll have to let me know, but I think it's going to be tough. Now, If you answer correctly for our trivia question, you get a chance to win a $10 gift card to our Eco Tour Adventure store. We started this during the COVID closure in March to help pay for employee health insurance. So if you would like to support our guides and support our ability to take folks out in the wild and keep bringing you guys these videos, feel free to go and do some shopping. More to the point of that, our question last week, because we are sort of thinking through a set remodel behind me here, I thought we should always, for instance, ask what people have been asking me for weeks, which is, what's that? What do I stand in front of every week? This is a photograph I took a number of years ago from a helicopter. If you know the answer of the name of this, go ahead and tell us in the comment section. That was last week's question, so you're not going to get a chance to win a $10 gift card for that one. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you an answer. Now, people used to tell me that you could actually see this feature from space. This is from Google Images. I'm not sure you can see it from space. We'd have to ask an astronaut. I think you could probably see the Midway Geyser Basin, all that white stuff in Yellowstone from space. But we'll zoom in a little bit. This is the second largest hot spring in the world. And of course, this is an image of Grand Prismatic. Isn't that a great name for a hot spring? Very 1890s and Hayden expedition of the 1870s. Grand Prismatic. We don't come up with great names for hot springs like that anymore. So yeah, this image behind me is stunning. It's one of the great natural wonders of the world. To see it in person at Midway Geyser Basin is a pretty amazing thing. Let us know in the comment section if you've seen it. Do you have a photo to share of Grand Prismatic that you've taken? I'd love to see that as well. Some folks last week said they'd love to see this in our store, offered for sale in the EcoTour store, since they look at it every week. So if you would like to purchase it, I've decided, sure, I'll go ahead and sell some copies of the image. I'm sure Taylor can put up a link for you, but we've got it available for you for sale, and I'll go ahead and order you some up. But long story short, that's Grand Prismatic. It's my favorite feature in Yellowstone National Park. It's been my favorite feature since I was 6 years old. And since we are broadcasting from inside my home, this is what hangs behind my couch, because I think it's stunning. But long story short, we're going to remodel soon. So we won't probably see an end to Grand Prismatic this week or next week, but probably soon. We might bring in some fall color, maybe a little winter. What would you guys like to see sitting behind me? Let me know. But in the meantime, let's get to this week's question of the week. So everybody has been enjoying the X-rays. So I've been working on a project for a number of years in partnership with the Bridger Teton National Forest, where I have been taking X-rays of skulls of wildlife, and every once in a while I've put one of these up as one of our trivia questions. One of these days I'd love to do an exhibition somewhere, but I have to come up with the right educational setting for that. In the meantime, this is an X-ray I took a few years ago of a skull, and there's a couple things that I want you to sort of pay attention. It's going to give you a hint to what this is. And the question of the week, which you need to put in the comments section if you know the answer, is what animal is this skull? Now, there's a few things I want you to look at. First and foremost, it's got sharp, pointy teeth. It's got sharp, pointy teeth, and it doesn't have molars. Okay, so herbivores don't have sharp, pointy teeth, right? They've just got the molars and the choppy teeth in the front. Omnivores have both molars and sharp canines, sharp, pointy teeth in the front, just like humans, right? Because we're omnivores. But carnivores don't have molars. And this animal, if you look carefully at these teeth, they're all sharp and pointy. There are no molars in there. So we know that it's in the order Carnivora. We know it's a carnivore. And we know it's an animal that doesn't have any molars. So if you're thinking through all the different animal species, it might help to think, does your dog have molars? Because dogs are omnivores. Might give you a little bit of a hint. Second thing to think about is this animal has no protruding nose. Its face is pretty smooshed in. So that's your second hint. Third hint I'm going to go ahead and give to you is it is in the cat family. So go ahead and let me know what you think this is. what this x-ray is, put it in the comments section. It's a type of cat. It's a wild animal that lives in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and it is a carnivore. We'll go ahead and we'll tell you next week what that is. But in the meantime, while you guys think that over, I'm here to answer your questions live. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to look on my little iPad here at your questions. So if you see me looking down, that's what it's about. And I'll go ahead and pop them on the screen and we'll answer them one by one. So if you got a question for me, go ahead and ask in the comment section and we'll kind of go from there. All right, people are getting the correct answer. So is this too easy again? Like, oh my gosh, do we have to get into like Latin to fool you guys? You guys are way too smart. I thought, well, that one's going to be difficult, but let's see what we got here. All right, Lee, she asks, will the snow send the elk lower sooner than in other years? Lee, yes. Snow definitely pushes animals that are in the high country down, but they would have been coming down regardless because, of course, their breeding season is coming up. So most of the bull elk like to be at a bit of altitude during the summer months, eating that nice green wave of grass as it moves its way up the mountains. They're coming back down onto the valley floor to try and find some cow elk and build some harems and participate in that breeding season. So great question. Yes, the snow can accelerate that effect, but it certainly isn't necessarily going to happen without it. Snow also is going to go ahead and signal to the pronghorn antelope, it's time to migrate. Get out of the valley. Migrate south. They don't have the long legs to be able to handle the deep snow of winter, so they have a really long migration down towards Pinedale to make every year. So great question. Thank you very much for that. Rosalie asks, did the snow help the wildfires? Rosalie, yes, it definitely did. But the snow was accompanied with very, very windy conditions. So it's kind of a mixed thing. On the one hand, there was a lot of rain with that snow, and that certainly was helpful. But on the other hand, 70-mile-an-hour gusts are not going to help you put a fire out. We did have a small fire that started south of the town of Jackson this weekend. That was called the Swinging Bridge Fire, that they were able to basically have out by Monday, but I'm sure all of that rain Monday night certainly got any of the hot pockets. But it didn't necessarily do very much for instance, the Lone Star Geyser fire up in Yellowstone, is my understanding. The strong winds in some ways can be more problematic. So everybody kind of thinks a big thunderstorm is what we need to put out wildfires. Sometimes a big thunderstorm makes the wildfires worse. If they're burning hot enough, the rain's not going to put them out, and the wind can make them worse. In this case, I think the Swinging Bridge fire was small enough and had mostly been controlled, and so it actually was a benefit. But like big fires in Colorado, who also got this storm, weren't necessarily as positively affected. So great question, kind of depends on the wind. Let's see here. Lee asks, how do I look back at the videos? Is there an archive? Yes, Lee. If you go to the video section on our Facebook page or on YouTube or on Instagram, there is a Wildlife Wednesday video area on all of those video pages where you can see all of them arranged by date going backwards in time. So feel free to check out some old episodes. Thanks for asking. Let's see here. Everybody loved the otters. I think Joey's mentioning my sunburn. Yes, indeed, I definitely got a sunburn. I burn and then it like goes away to a tan. So yes, you're quite right. I think I did get a sunburn. Les asks, do any birds remain in the area during the winter? Yes, Les, we have about 150 species of bird that use this area in the winter. That's about half of our overall bird population in the summertime. So Plenty of birds to see in the winter. Some birds actually in the winter that we wouldn't necessarily see in the summer. Our bald eagle population, for instance, goes up quite a bit as they are carrion eaters, and they make use of winter kill. Some other animals, some kinds of birds are actually much easier to see in the winter because all that leaves and brush and things actually, make it really hard. They've got great camouflage, things like grouse and songbirds. You actually have an easier time when you're looking on a bare branch, and particularly some really colorful birds that are here in the winter as well. So great question. Come out on a birding trip in the winter. You're going to really think it's great. Every single year I do the Christmas bird count, and I'm always amazed in just such a small area that I'm assigned. I find dozens and dozens of species every year. It's really amazing the diversity of bird life that we have year-round in Jackson Hole. So great question. Bridget, you're asking about the bears. Go all the way back to the first story of the program. You can get us check-in on 399 and 610. They're doing just fine. I saw them last night. They looked great. Let's see here. Okay, I'm so excited you're coming up. I hope you get a chance to see 399 and all of our other bears. She's not the only bear out there, but she's pretty great with those quadruplets. She's definitely been very visible in the last week, so I hope you have some success. Alrighty, let's see here. Lois, you're making me rack my brains a little bit, but I believe, if I'm right, giant Tess Geyser recently erupted for the first time in 6 years. Giant Tess Geyser is in the lower Geyser basin, and it's very erratic in its eruptions. It can erupt very, very large, well over, I think it's over 80 feet, but don't quote me on that. But it can also be kind of surprisingly small and kind of a hit or miss. And sometimes it erupts, it has an active period where it erupts for some time, and then sometimes it definitely takes a hiatus. 6 years is not uncommon for a giantess, is my understanding. I do recall seeing it more when I was a kid. And then there was a period right out of college where I was seeing it for a while, and then it had kind of gone away for a while. So it did erupt. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going into an active phase for giantess. We'll have to see, but hopefully. We're in an active phase for Steamboat right now, which is also a very erratic geyser, world's largest geyser, and it's definitely something to see right now. So we've got a couple different things going on. There's been some increasing activity all over the lower geyser basin. So great question. We can find out more for you, but my understanding is it is giant Tess that is putting on a little bit of show. Let's see here. Dawn asks, are your Yellowstone National Park tours all day or overnight trips? Dawn, we offer both. We offer a trip that is a day trip, so you can sort of see the best of what you can find in Yellowstone in a day. And then we also do multi-day trips, which give us a lot more opportunities for more elusive wildlife like wolves and grizzly bears. So yeah, give us a call, talk to us a little bit, and we can certainly give you some ideas in that direction. So thanks for that. Let's see here. Is the early snow hard on young cubs like 399s? I bet that came as a little bit of a shock to those cubs, although I will say that we had a few snowstorms after they came out of the den this spring. So that wasn't their first time probably seeing snow, but now they're a little older and are able to understand it perhaps a little bit more. I don't think it's necessarily going to affect them. They have very warm, dense coats. They're not going to get cold from the snow. Snow is slippery. It takes a little practice to learn how to walk and maneuver on snow. I was slip sliding on it a little bit as I was trying to harvest the last of my herbs and everything else from my garden before it froze. And I was sliding all over the place. So I would imagine a cub who's not used to maneuvering in sort of ice and snow conditions might be taken a bit aback. but they'll probably figure it out by mimicking mom. As we see more and more snow, that's going to signal to them more and more opportunities that they probably need to get through hyperphagia, get as much food as they can as soon as they can. And then, like we talked about last week, when the amount of food, the caloric intake they're taking in is less than the amount of energy they're expending to get it, there's going to be a hormone that's going to switch in their brains, and it's going to say time to go to sleep, time to hibernate, or more properly anestivate. So the snow is not necessarily telling the bears to go into hibernation. It's the caloric amount of food they're getting in. There's still plenty of berries out there, but it probably was a new and novel experience for them. Probably pretty interesting to be a young bear and see snow. You know, they saw it when they were really little, but who knows how much of that they remember. It would probably be quite memorable. They are still occasionally nursing from mom. They can burrow over to her if they need to, but they're perfectly able to stay warm in the kind of conditions we have now. So great question. Let's see here. All right, I think those are all of our questions this week, everybody. It has been such a pleasure spending this Wednesday with you. A big thanks to the Travel and Tourism Board, who's given us a grant to go ahead and continue our video series so that we can continue to show you all the great stuff that's going on in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Don't forget that 10% off if you plan on booking a trip. Feel free to answer our trivia question if you know what that is and get a chance at that $10 gift card. I hope you all have a great week, a wild weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Wednesday.